The two curriculums that I would like to talk about are the curriculum experience that I had during my apprentice teaching and the curriculum experience that I'm having at the campus that I work at. The curriculum experience that I had with my apprentice teaching was a curriculum that allows students to master the STAR exam, meaning a banking concept curriculum where students were memorizing, finding tricks, and using the calculator to get the answer. Students were not using their critical thinking abilities, they were not working with their peers, their cultural identities was not incorporated in the curriculum, and overall, teachers were just using textbooks and calculators as their curriculum. There was never a cohesive unity within teachers, everybody just did their own thing. When I was doing my apprentice teaching, the first thing that my mentor said was, I would like for all my students to pass their STAR exam. Therefore, my goal during my apprentice teaching was to have all students pass their STAR exam. And they did. With repetition and memorization and having the calculator available to them, it was fairly easy to pass the STAR exam. However, now that I'm reflecting, the curriculum was very meaningless to the student and to the instructor. To the student, it didn't provide any meaningful learning experience that they can learn from themselves, but also from their peers. For the teachers, it didn't allow a rigorous instruction, nor did it allow to create a culture where all teachers come together to give feedback or have students provide their feedback on the curriculum. Overall, it was a textbook banking concept curriculum. We just wanted the students to pass the STAR exam. And I noticed something important with this curriculum, which was the subgroup division. My students were the upper class students who primarily spoke English and had the resources necessary at home and at school to get to the goal that they needed to obtain. They had phones available, computers, Wi-Fi at home, and so these students were taking the upper classes course levels at the middle school versus the low income Spanish speaking students were taking the regular courses. And so it was very apparent the separation of upper class versus lower class. This also meant that teachers didn't have the resources needed to accommodate to every student's needs. And so I decided to also observe another teacher who had the quote unquote bad students, meaning the students from low income communities. When I went to go observe this teacher, it was the same curriculum where it was a banking concept curriculum, a textbook curriculum. The only difference that I noticed from both classes was that in the class that I observed, students were encouraged to use their culture to strive for success. They were free to use Spanish to express their thoughts, and they were also freely to help one another. I believe that the teacher created a culture of team and family, and which led them to obtain very high test scores. Now, at my school, we have a school district curriculum, meaning we have a curriculum leader who they with their team create a curriculum. They then present it to the teachers on a 2 to 3 day training in where teachers provide feedback based from their classroom experience. This curriculum takes into consideration students' cultural identities as well as their communities. A lot of my students are able to reference back to the things that they learned from home and be able to incorporate it into the classroom, but also be able to teach other students through Kagan structure strategies. Another thing that I really love about this curriculum is the equity aspect, where all students are taking the same course and teachers are provided the resources and tools necessary to accommodate to students like ELL or special ed students. During my first year, it was pretty difficult to accommodate to students who were not at the same level as other students. But through backward planning, I was able to provide those tools necessary to those students to be able to achieve the same success as the other students. With this curriculum, it taught me to take into consideration students of low income, students who are marginalized, students who come from a Spanish-speaking household into consideration. Every time that I did my backward planning, those students were always incorporated into my lesson plan. In conclusion, what I really appreciate about the curriculum that's in place right now is the ability for teachers to come together and provide feedback based from the classroom experience, as well as it takes into consideration students' identities and it encourages the use of their primary language. Overall, I am growing as an educator with this curriculum implemented, and I truly appreciate the ability that students have to cooperate with one another and be able to take that into the real world.